Welcome, everyone, to the Sports Illustrated Media Podcast. I am your host, Jimmy Traina. Thank you for listening. We've got Al Michaels on the pod today, followed by the Train of Thought segment with Sal Licata. Great stuff with Al on a bunch of topics, including whether he's headed to Amazon for Thursday Night Football next year, and a bunch of other stuff with Al, so we'll get right into it. Before we do, though, quickly, if you missed last week's episode, we had Chris Long on the pod. 2 weeks ago, Steve Levy and Jeff Garland from Curb Your Enthusiasm. If you missed those interviews, go into the archives, give them a listen, and subscribe to the SI Media Podcast. And if you could leave a review, that helps as well. All right, let's get to Al Michaels right now, followed by Train of Thoughts on this week's SI Media Podcast. All right, joining me now, the voice of Sunday Night Football and a man who is part of the greatest prank call in the history of prank calls, Al Michaels. Al, thanks for doing this. How are you?
What a legacy. One of the great prank calls in history. And that baby has lived on, thanks to Howard Stern, of course. But what can I tell you? That's that's over 25 years ago. But not to be forgotten, lest anybody tries to forget it. That would be farcical. And you know that better than anybody, Jimmy.
I do. And I have to try to be professional now and not spend the entire time I have with you talking about that prank call, because I could easily do that. I'm a very farcical person that way. But we need to talk about football and some other things going on. Let's start with this. Since we're taping this Wednesday afternoon and it just happened, a couple of hours ago, Aaron Rodgers testing positive for COVID. Obviously, because he's in a 10-day protocol, will miss the game Sunday against the Chiefs. So that means he's unvaccinated after he said he was immunized. Everyone's all wrapped up in Rodgers. Let me ask you this, because I think this is an angle people aren't really covering yet because it's so fresh. I'm curious if the Packers, we don't know what the Packers knew or didn't know, but if the Packers knew he was unvaccinated and didn't follow the protocols, I would imagine the Packers could be in for a big hit here from the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, this could be a can of worms here. We don't know. And I mean, Aaron was, I guess, pretty evasive when he was asked about this earlier this year. So just another thing that Park Avenue will have to dig down deep into and uncover. It's like it just one on top of another. We all know what went on with Affair Gruden and the other things that are taking place in the National Football League. But this is gigantic. Missing the game this week, maybe missing the game next week. I'm just happy that we wanted this game pretty badly when the schedule came out on Sunday night. Now I'm pretty happy we didn't get it, even though we get Tennessee and LA, and we have our own problems right now with basic problems in terms of promoting the game with Derrick Henry's injury. But so be it. It's the NFL, and every day there's something new.
You read my mind, because my next question to you was going to be, when something like this happens, do you say to yourself, oh, I wish we had that game Sunday night? Because obviously, now listen, people aren't going to expect now the game to be that competitive. I think the Chiefs defense stinks, so maybe the Packers keep it close. But you have so much to talk about if you have that game. It's a Sunday 4:25 Fox game with Joe, Troy, and Aaron. When that story happens, is your first thought, I wish we had this game, or I'm glad we don't have this game?
Well, it goes both ways. I mean, last week we're doing Dallas and Minnesota, and when it looked like Prescott wouldn't play, now we're thinking, gee, I wish we had another game. And then we all thought, Prescott was going to play because we watched him warm up. He was smiling. The Jones family came down with McCarthy. And Chris and I, driving out to the stadium on Sunday, we started talking about how we were going to open up the show because we were convinced that Prescott was not playing. So here's Cooper Rush. What are they going to do, et cetera, et cetera. We get out there. Now we're watching Prescott. Now we're starting to talk to each other about, let's open up the game with, Prescott was a game time decision. He's going. And then we find out he's inactive. So we went from, when the schedule came out, great game, to Dak not playing, to wish we had another game, to Dak looking like he was going to play, to now we're back into the game, to Dak's not going to play. We don't want this game, but the game turned out to be great. And of course, Cooper Rush was the big story that night.
Because I would think you have the Cowboys without Dak, the Packers without Aaron. I could think, though, I could still see you wanting the game, because then the upset like that happened with Cooper Rush playing as well as he did, that makes for a great sort of storyline as well.
Oh, no question about it. Yeah. And we've done enough games with new quarterbacks. I mean, we had, going back to the Monday night and Sunday night early years, Tony Romo's first game. So there's always a sense of mystery. But with a guy like Prescott, we wanted him because he's an MVP candidate. He's having a tremendous year, and the story is great to begin with. This week, with Tennessee, this was, disappointing, obviously, for the Titans, but for us too, because, we were going to promote this game pretty much as you've got Derrick Henry on one side, and you've got not only Aaron Donald, but now you've got Von Miller on the other side, and the Rams are 7-1, and the Titans look like they're the among the best, obviously, in the AFC. So this is kind of a different deal. This has some mystery to it, but not as much as when a quarterback is out and you can build him up like Cooper Rush, who is this guy, and he has a tremendous day the other day. Now the story is going to be what are the Titans going to do? But that doesn't have as much appeal as if Derrick Henry was playing in the game.
Right. And what is it like for you doing that game Sunday night, Cowboys at Vikings, when you're going against Game 5 of the World Series? Is that in your mind at all? Obviously, you've got to do your job, so it's not going to affect that. But are you bummed about that? It is what it is? How do you feel about going against a World Series game?
Yeah, years ago, we didn't have a game against the World Series. Then we decided – in my mind, you're going against stiff competition. But the crazy thing is, Jimmy, as you know, an NFL regular season game, Week 8, will outrate a World Series game, which I never thought would happen. In my first year, going back to Monday Night Football in 1986, it's the Mets Red Sox World Series, and the game was rained out on Sunday night, which meant they went against us on Monday night, which normally they wouldn't have because of the rain out.
Right.
And then, of course, you had that's the Mookie Wilson through Bill Buckner's legs World Series, and I was working with Frank Gifford that year, and Frank was all football, no baseball, and we're driving out. We're doing Redskins at Giants in the Meadowlands. Meanwhile, you've got Game 6 of the World Series taking place at Shea Stadium. And Frank said, we'll outrate them. And I said, Frank, there's no chance. And I think the rating that night, I think the baseball game got a 40 and the football game got an 8. So this was like, you're talking about 34 years ago.
Right.
Now we're to the point, as you know, where the Yankees or the Red Sox against the Dodgers, let's say, in the World Series, probably or maybe would have slightly outrated Dallas, Minnesota, but we knew with Atlanta against Houston that we'd win the night. Now, naturally, it kind of savages our rating. Our rating, whatever it was going to be maybe 2 or 3 points higher. But listen, I don't like going against the World Series because I want to watch it myself.
Right. That's what I mean. Are you watching it from the booth? Do you have a little on an iPad? Really. No. Can't do that.
No, one of our tech guys is a big baseball fan, and he's in the back of the booth, and he'd give me the score like every half hour. Yeah. No, but we're concentrating on our game at that point.
I was, the Cowboys and Vikings did beat the World Series game, but it was much closer than I thought. I had said on Twitter, I thought the NFL would bury it only for one reason, because it's the Cowboys. But I guess the Prescott injury may have been a factor in maybe not giving you guys maybe an extra point or something like that.
Yeah, it might have. I don't know. But maybe I think the baseball game may have started a little before us, and then you've got a grand slam home run in the first inning, and that excites people to whatever degree. But still, the fact that a regular season football game outrates the 5th game of the World Series just tells you, and you know it as well as anybody, the NFL is the king.
And as you know, that is a big factor in that is the wagers that can be placed on a football game. It is amazing.
Really?
It is.
Seriously.
Did you know that, Al? It is amazing. It's amazing to see what's happened. It's amazing.
You saw as well as I did. So the line, I think, opened up when it opened up in the Dallas, Minnesota game, I believe was Dallas -2.5 and wound up Minnesota -4.
Yeah.
Now, some people must have some information because that line was moving so crazily. So, it went obviously in Minnesota's direction when it looked like Prescott wasn't going to play. But now we're thinking Prescott's going to play. But still, that line didn't move that much. But when's the last time you saw a 6.5 point move in like a 5-day period?
How about today? The Packers, I think, went from -1 now to +6.
There you go.
The Rodgers. Right. That's a bigger. That'll probably end up being a bigger swing than the Viking game with Prescott. I jumped on the Cowboy money line in a parlay, so that worked out well for me.
Hey, we're setting records every week. Doesn't matter where you look, right?
Can you believe what's happened with the gambling presence in the NFL in terms of the ads, the partnerships? It's happened much faster than I thought. I don't know if you feel that way.
Yes, in a way, but I mean, a lot of states have not legalized it yet. It's still evolving. I just, look, I've had a lot of fun with it through the years. I don't bet on games because I have a lot of inside information, and I still don't know who's going to win. I mean, I love sports, especially football, because but you really don't know. And then you get all kinds of like insane backdoor covers, like Houston and the Rams last week, right? We were leading 38-0, and the next thing you know, it's 38-22. Right?
I got burned by that one. You didn't need to, Al. You didn't need to bring that one up. That one hurt me.
Some people, but don't forget, for everybody who gets burned, somebody is elated.
I know.
So I just think, hey, look, it's fun. I hope people do it with some discretion. What worries me is you get to the point where you're going to bet on run or pass on a given play. Holy mackerel. And, I just hope that, people are smart about it, because I don't want to see a new world record set in mortgage foreclosures because somebody's betting like on every play in every game in every sport.
You just hit on something that I think is not covered as much by the by the mainstream media. I hate using that term, but we always listen. Sports betting is getting legalized state by state. Everyone knows you could bet a side, a total, but when you see down to, how many catches this guy gets, how many yards this guy gets, will there be overtime? The amount that you can bet on a game, especially, I know some sites will add a ton of more props to primetime games like yours with Chris on Sunday nights on NBC. I mean, you have their games. It's like you have 200 options, basically.
Too many. Those are people, they just need action on anything and everything. They bet on a cockroach race in somebody's basement or something. It's like, it's too much at a certain point. That's almost like you're to the point where you really do need some help. If you need action like every 15 seconds, good luck.
I had over 22 and a half completions for Daniel Jones on Monday night, and he finished with 22. So yes, there's too much out there. There's too much out there. There's too much out there. So you have Titans Rams this Sunday on NBC. How far is SoFi from where you live? That's got to be a nice commute for you when you do the Rams.
Yeah, it's probably about 8.5 miles. But in Los Angeles traffic, that could be anywhere from 11 minutes to a day and a half, an overnight visit at a hotel on the way down.
I've heard that stadium is by far the worst stadium that's ever been built ever to get in and out of. In terms of traffic,
I don't know, because the times that we've been there, number one, last year we did the opening game when nobody was allowed in there. Right. So that was easy. Didn't have to leave early to beat the traffic. We did the opener there this year, and we get there 3.5 hours before the game. So we don't see that. There's no freeway that's next to it or a major road. So they're still trying to figure that out. And I think they're getting better from what I heard, but the stadium itself is off the charts. It is. If you find a better stadium than that in the world, I want you to call me collect.
But what do you prefer a stadium like that, or do you prefer old school history like Lambeau or Arrowhead?
It's kind of like saying, would you rather have a porterhouse or a filet mignon or a New York steak? I love them all. Arrowhead is amazing in the sense that the plans were drawn in the late 60s. Right. And, it doesn't look like the rest of the stadiums, but it's a great feel. And they built it. The stands are so close. Lambeau, of course, has the great history. And, they through the years, they've added on 6 or 7 different times. So Lambeau doesn't look like the Lambeau that was constructed in the 50s. I think of the modern stadiums, SoFi, Dallas, and where we were the other night, Minnesota, are the best because they have certain features that are a little bit different. They're not cookie cutter stadiums. Remember, we went through that period in the '70s where they were building stadiums in Cincinnati, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Atlanta. They were terrible. They were like soup tureens because they built them for baseball and football.
Right.
So I like the way the new stadiums have been constructed. And as I say, my holy trinity in football, L.A., Minnesota, and Dallas, where the Dallas stadium is now 12 or 13 years old, and every time I walk in there, it feels big time. It just does.
Yeah. All right, so let me ask you the most important question of the podcast, since you brought it up. If
Yes,
Al
sir.
Michaels goes to dinner tonight, are you ordering a porterhouse, a filet, or a New York strip?
Probably New York, fewer calories. I love, like, a ribeye is great, but as well as I
don't like
it's
the ribeye.
Well,
I shouldn't say I don't like it. I prefer the others. I'll say that.
Yeah. Actually, tonight I'm heading to a place where I'll probably have a little pasta. But this weekend, obviously, a big old juicy steak. And there's nothing better.
If you get the strip, what's the top side that you like to have with it? Because the sides are really what makes or breaks the steakhouses.
I don't like vegetables. I think I'm noted for that.
You and Ian Eagle with the food. Have you and Ian ever talked about your food quirkiness?
We had a brief conversation once on a Thursday night game that he was doing the radio for, and I was doing television back in 2016. But I think Ian may eat salads. So when somebody tells me they have a salad, and I say, "Wait a second, that's a vegetable." I've never had a vegetable, zero. But I would say, the best side, and you don't get it at too many places, are potato skins. I like potatoes.
Yeah,
that's a starch. It's not a vegetable.
Right.
Mashed potatoes are great. A baked potato is great, but I love potato skins. You put a little sour cream in it, Jimmy, that's nirvana.
Okay. Yeah, I can see that. I think the greatest steakhouse side is Ruth's Chris. They have Ruth's Chris out in L.A., I assume? They do.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Sure.
The sweet potato casserole. Now, you will need to go to the dentist after and check your diabetes, but that is the best side at a steakhouse.
And a toothpick as well. But I think that... no, I'm not a sweet potato guy. I like the regular potatoes, but sweet potato, it's on the border of a vegetable. But and also, Jimmy, you do know you got to have a little ketchup. You do know that.
On the steak?
On the side, just to kind of dip it.
No, Al, no.
Yeah. I grew up in Brooklyn. Are you kidding me? Come on. When I was 6 years old, my mother's giving me a steak with the ketchup.
You and Patrick Mahomes.
There you go. But he went with that Hunt's brand. I'm sorry about that, but my apologies to the Hunt's people. There's only one ketchup, Heinz, baby. It's Heinz bust.
When we post this is going to become a thing. People are not going to like this revelation.
But a lot of people they understand. As somebody who grew up in Brooklyn, in Brooklyn we ate a lot of ketchup, and it's kind of like it's in my DNA. What can I tell you?
This is disappointing. I got to bounce back now. Now I will ask you about. Let's get into something serious before we do some other fun stuff. Is Al Michaels going to Amazon?
Right now, I'm playing out this year. My contract is up at the end of the season. NBC's been great to me. If there is a combination for production between Amazon and NBC, that creates a different template here. Because in effect, we would wind up overseeing two packages. It's not a deal yet. I know it's being discussed. Amazon will probably need a partner, obviously, for production. And we'll see what's going to happen at the end of the year. But right now, I'm just trying to relish at this point in my life, loving what I do, loving the people I work with. We have the Super Bowl in my hometown. This contract can't end any more beautifully for me. And then we'll take a look and we'll see what's going to happen down the line. I do know this. I love what I'm doing as much as ever. I'm relishing it. As you get older, I'm kind of like, I've actually had talks through the years with people like Tom Brady and Drew Brees, and they get toward the ends of their career. And in a way, that the end is much closer than the beginning or even the middle. And I'm really just sucking out all the joy I can from this season. Got a great schedule. Love it. And then we'll see, I want to get to the end of the year and then figure out what's going to happen.
This is what I don't know how deep you want to get into it, but this is what I don't understand about this. And I've written this. I get what you're saying about the end and, hanging on and all that stuff. That's fine if you've diminished. You have not diminished in any way, shape, or form at all. So that's why I don't understand why you would not be calling Sunday nights on NBC. That's just my opinion. I don't know if you want to address that.
No, yeah, I don't know, what's going to happen down the line here. I do know this. There was no way that I was going to hang on. I mean, if I couldn't feel as if I was doing the game the way I have to do the game, the way I have done the game, you're not going to appeal to everybody. I know, but I think most people, listen, I've lasted 36 years prime time in the NFL, so I guess I've done a good enough job that, I haven't pissed off too many people. and there's no way I'm going to go out and not be 100% what I am. I love doing the games. I'm prepared for the games as hard as I ever have, maybe even more so, because the fans know more or as much as you do through social media, all of the channels and places that they can go to get their information. So I've got to stay really on top of it. I enjoy it. I'm exhilarated by it. It's an intoxicating thing to do this thing and be on the number one show on TV. I don't know. I mean, that's a decision, Jimmy, that's out of my hands in that regard. And I appreciate your input on this and what you've written and all of that. I get it. And I appreciate it very much. But that is a decision that is not mine.
It's a couple of hypotheticals and then we'll move on from this. I'm just curious. The Thursday night schedule, not great. I don't know if they're going to try to improve it when they go to Amazon, but no matter what they do, Sunday 425, Sunday NBC are going to have the two best games every week. That's just the way, there might be a fluke week here and there where there's a good Monday night game. Does that bother? Would that factor into your decision about whether to do it?
Well, I think Amazon is spending, as far as I know, about $1.3 billion a year to do Thursday. And I think part of that would be the NFL. The NFL, I think, wants to see Amazon succeed at the very, very highest level, because that may be the future of, viewing sports, streaming down the line. It's not happening right now, but I think down the line, they look at that as, that's going to be a hugely important component to the coverage. So I think what they will do, the league, is try to give them really good games. Once in a while, you're going to have to wind up with, I don't know, Jacksonville against Atlanta, whatever.
Bills Colts this week.
Right,
Jets Colts.
But maybe, those teams could evolve too. So you come out with the schedule. And like this year, they gave Thursday night to Fox, Green Bay, Arizona, which turned out to be a game watched by, I think, more people than watched Sunday night. 20.3. Thursday night it's interesting. It's how, and as well as anybody, it's the way the game is going to be consumed. And people will consume this game with their mobile devices. And it's kind of funny. I was thinking the other night, if I wind up doing this, and you used to say things like, when the camera would be right there and a guy would come in and right into the camera, you'd say he was going to come right into your living room. Now I can say he's going to come right into your phone, because a lot of people are going to be consuming it that way. So it's a different animal. We know that. Judge Judy just went to Amazon. Yeah, she's been on syndicated television. She went there. All this, the streaming, Netflix. So this is the new frontier. I get that. And I think that the league wants Amazon to succeed very strongly. And so as a consequence, you're going to have, some games that are not going to be very exciting, but you're going to wind up with some pretty good games when the schedule comes out. And then some games will evolve and turn out to be really good games.
Right. Yeah, that happens every year. Last one on this. I have to assume, because of your stature, how long you've done this, your sort of where you're standing, all this. If you went, there's mixed, at first we heard it would be you and Chris going to Amazon, and, NBC has Tirico and Breeze waiting in the wings. Then we've heard just you going to Amazon. If you went to Amazon without Chris, I would assume you get a say on who the analyst is going to be. Or maybe not a say, but if they come to you and they say they want you to do it with this guy, you can say not happening. Is that important to you, or you don't think you play
I think, yes, a partnership is very important. Right. And if we go down the line and we do get to that point, there's no question about that. You'd have to, because this. Hold on one second.
That's NBC telling you to stop talking about Amazon.
That's right. Hey, shut up already. You're trending on Twitter.
Don't say anything about Amazon.
No. The people you're working with are vitally important. And at this point in my life and career, I think what you need is somebody that you can trust, that has had some experience, both as a partner and in the truck. It's vitally important because it all kind of connects together. And I'm very fortunate in the sense I've had the same producer, Fred Godelli, for 21 years, the same director, Drew Esicott, for 22. I had John Madden for 7. Now I have Chris Collinsworth for 13. Michelle Tafoya, who's the best side reporter of all time, 13 or 14 years with Michelle in 2 different iterations. It works. And it's the old cliche about making the sausage. I don't know how the sausage is made, but I think at the end of the day, it tastes really good. And so I would have to have the confidence that the people that would be around me in any situation would be really good, would want to work their asses off too, and to present the best product we possibly could.
All right, I'll move on. It sounds like Al's going to Amazon, but I'll move on.
Now, right. Well, you and Andrew Marchand, right? Andrew calls me. I say, Andrew, what's new in my life? Come on. It's unbelievable.
Andrew knows.
Boy, I'm telling you, he's wired.
All right, we'll move on to something here. We'll move on here because I got to tell you. So I went on Wikipedia just as basic research, and I mean we've talked about this when you've been on before. I mean your resume is absolutely ridiculous. The amount of things you've called over the years, it's crazy. But something here cracked me up. I want to get your reaction. They list every big event you've called. Now, it starts in 1972 with the Winter Olympics, and they actually have here Super Bowl LVI, which is in 2022. But I want to read you the list of the 2000s just to get to something here and get your reaction. These are the big events called by Al Michaels in the year 2000. Okay, year 2000, Super Bowl 34. 2000, Kentucky Derby. 2000, Preakness Stakes. 2000, Indianapolis 500, Stanley Cup Finals. Belmont Stakes. 2001, Indianapolis 500, Stanley Cup Finals, Super Bowl 37, 2006, Super Bowl, what is that, 40? 40, Super Bowl 43,
40.
2010 Winter Olympics, the butt fumble.
The butt fumble.
The butt fumble is now getting lumped in with the Olympics, the Stanley Cup. What was that like for you?
Our boys at Wikipedia, right? I mean, it's like, where would the butt fumble rank? I mean, I'm like Zelig. I keep winding up in these crazy places. I mean, Jimmy, to me, the most ironic thing in my career is that a lot of people know me from the Winter Olympics in 1980, an earthquake at the World Series, and doing the play-by-play on a Bronco chase, of course, in 1994. Meanwhile, 36 years of doing the NFL in prime time, that's over here somewhere, right? A hockey game, an earthquake, and a Bronco chase. Yeah. So it's kind of crazy. And then the butt fumble is in there too. I mean, there's all kinds of like wild stuff. And once in a while, I'll take a look at a list and I'm go, wow, I forgot about that. But I've been so lucky because I've been in so many places where so many wild and crazy things have happened. And that's, that's just one of the list of 1,000. What
is not the biggest, not the Olympics. What's the craziest game you ever called where you just couldn't believe an ending, a finish, or an outcome where you were just stunned beyond belief? I mean, I guess the hockey one is up there, but I'm talking about like a weird random one.
Well, I mean, I think about, my favorite events. There are 2 Super Bowls. One is Arizona-Pittsburgh, which was tremendous. Where, what are the Cardinals doing in the game in the first place? And now they're leading with 2.5 minutes to go. And then Roethlisberger leads that drive at the end, and Santonio Holmes makes that amazing catch. I did the Malcolm Butler interception game. So those would be the 2 Super Bowls, right? Yeah. But I would say if there's something behind Lake Placid's by itself, I mean, nothing will ever top that.
Yeah.
Angels Red Sox in 1986.
That gets forgotten because of the Mets Red Sox, and Mets Astros was great too.
Correct. That was a postseason for the ages. Roger Angel, the great writer, did a great piece in the New Yorker about it several months later. But that game, I mean, the Angels, they have a 3-run lead in the ninth inning. They have a 3-1 lead in the series, and that's the Dave Henderson home run game. But the Angels come back and tie the game in the bottom of the ninth inning. And it was the 35th anniversary of it. And Mike DiGiovanna from the LA Times called me up, and we went back and thought about that game. And I mean, that was as intense a 1 hour from the top of the ninth through the bottom of the 11th I've ever seen. Because a lot of these other things, you know, the Super Bowls ended dramatically, even though it's a 3-hour game. I did Hagler Hearns. I did that fight in 1985. That's 8 minutes. That was phenomenal. But this was a one hour of such drama. I remember at one point saying, I mean, the crowd's going crazy. The horses and the cops are out on the field to protect the field. And the next thing you know, the Red Sox take the lead. The Angels tie the game. It was crazy. And at one point, I mean, the crowd is going wild. And then maybe in the 11th inning, it was really quiet at Anaheim Stadium. And I said on the air, I said, you know what? The crowd is wrung out. They've been screaming for 45 minutes. They've got nothing left.
Yeah.
So that would be, apart from Lake Placid, maybe that would be number 2.
That's a good one for sure. You know, I came across something else just in doing a little research. I'm obsessed with, imagine if Twitter was around for this. And obviously the first thing that everyone thinks of is OJ. Imagine if that OJ thing happened during the Twitter era. You're not on Twitter, so you might not, so maybe it's a little difficult. But I came across something that I thought, if Twitter was around for this would have been a monstrous story. Maybe it was back then, but you had what's the word? Not a pleasant, I guess, separation with Boomer Esiason. I don't know how bad that feud actually was, but I didn't realize until I did the research that Boomer took some shots at you after he got fired. And then we talked previously about how important it is to have the analyst thing there. But was that really a huge deal when Boomer got fired? He took shots at you. What's the genesis of that whole thing?
Yeah, I think he was very disappointed. You know, it was made too much of in the press, which of course they got onto something, and then Boomer was upset, and as he should be and would be in a situation where you get fired. You know, look, they made much too big of a deal of it. I think part of this was that Boomer had the opportunity. He'd been playing, and he'd been playing fairly well. And he had an opportunity to do Monday night, and maybe wasn't ready to come off the field. So I think he had 1 foot in the booth, and he had 1 foot on the field. And Jason Witten was the same way. Jason Witten came back and played, and Boomer would have come back and played had he had the opportunity. So that was part of it. I think, it was just a matter of look, to me, it wasn't the perfect combination, but it was certainly a heck of a lot better than people made it out to be. And then, of course, when he got fired, and he was really fired by Don Ohlmeyer, when Ohlmeyer came in to produce it, that's the first thing Don did. That wasn't my call. I didn't fire him. Don did. It's real simple. And then, Don wanted to reconstruct the show, do it differently. And of course, that led to the Dennis Miller years.
Right.
So think about that.
I know.
That's another story for me, right?
So I was going to say, it's funny you say that, the press was over the top on that, because if that happened today with you and Boomer going back and forth, really him taking shots, I mean, that would be a monster story. And then, of course, the Dennis Miller thing, I looked at some clips, it holds up better now than I think for what it was. I think now fans and networks have realized you need to be a little looser on these broadcasts.
Right.
Back then, that really wasn't the case. So it was really jarring back then to hear Dennis Miller on Monday Night Football.
Yeah, it still might be jarring, and I'll tell you why. Because Dennis, one of the funniest people ever, unbelievable brain, comes up with some amazing lines. One of the problems I had is I wanted to laugh at almost everything he said, but if you start laughing, you sound like a hyena.
Right.
And people, don't forget, people are watching the game. You have the game, you have crowd noise, and you have the announcers. And one of the great things about Dennis, when he did his HBO show and other shows, is Dennis's facial expressions, his facial takes. So now, if you're watching a Dennis Miller show, you're seeing him, and he's got that look. It was great. He'd look confused or whatever, just the way he would contort his face when he said things. And that was as funny as some of the verbiage. When you're doing a football game, a lot of times people are watching the game. You got the crowd noise. You got three guys in the booth, and people will go, "What'd he say? What'd he say?" And a lot of what Dennis said, I mean, would have been 10 times better if you had him on camera. But you can't put him on camera in the middle of the game.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was, I mean, some of the greatest times ever were had with Dennis Miller over those 2 years.
That's it. Now, speaking of offbeat broadcasts, what's your opinion of the ManningCast that's setting the sports media world ablaze?
Well, I'm on it in a couple of weeks. Peyton called, and he wants me to do the Ram 49er game, I think.
Well, you and Peyton were supposed to do Sunday Night Football, according to Marshan, right? Wasn't that another story?
Well, it was in the mix. I mean, yeah, Andrew was on top of it. I mean,
was that close to happen? Was that close to happening?
Well, I was under contract, so number one, I'd have to be extricated from the deal, and I don't know what happened on the Peyton side. I think Peyton had other things in mind. So no, it never really, I mean, Andrew was on top of it. I think that's what ESPN did want, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, and listen, everything I've heard from multiple people who would know, and you've probably heard the same thing, Peyton doesn't want to do 17 weeks. That's what I've heard from it. That's why they're only doing 10 weeks with this thing.
Yeah. But Peyton also has a million other things going on too.
Right. So tell me what you think of the ManningCast.
I enjoy the byplay. I mean, first of all, Eli, I've known Eli pretty well, but I'm seeing a different side of Eli too. Right. Enjoying it. Like, I think the yin and yang of that is great. My feeling about that is, if I really want to watch the game, I've got to go to the conventional broadcast. If the game is like, oh, whatever, I'm not that interested in it, or it gets one-sided, yeah, it's kind of fun to go over there and see a different aspect, or a different realm. But I mean, in terms of, if I really want to concentrate on the game, and I really do, a lot of times we'll get teams a couple of weeks later or the next week that are on Monday night, and I really want to concentrate on the game. So I'm the wrong guy to ask in terms of, I'm not in the demographic.
No, it's funny because
be there every night.
Well, it's funny because I waited 3 or 4 weeks to write about the show. I wanted to give it a chance, and I wrote the same exact thing. If the Bucks were playing the Cardinals, I'd watch the traditional broadcast. Mm-hmm. 2 weeks ago, when it's the Saints against the Seahawks and it's the unwatchable Geno Smith, I'll watch Peyton and Eli. And, the thing that's happening now, I think, with Peyton and Eli, what I've noticed, at least just from Twitter reaction, everyone loves it, but you're hearing more and more each week about, no offense since you're going on there in 2 weeks, but less guests, fewer guests, more Peyton and Eli. People want to hear Peyton and Eli. And they've got a guest every quarter. Maybe they adjust it down the road or something like that. Mm-hmm. But, and I also think, and you're the perfect guy as the ultimate traditional broadcaster, there are some people going way too far saying this is the future. Well, maybe this will replace traditional telecasts. That's never going to happen. The NFL will never let that happen, but I'll let you weigh in on that ridiculous theory.
No, it will never be the traditional telecast. And I think what you're going to see is that the other networks will probably go to like a second or an alternate type of feed. But I mean, first of all, start with who's doing it. Peyton and Eli are major stars, and they're really good at this. So good luck. I'm not that you can't find another combination down the road, but I think they that's the gold standard for right now. And then you're trying people out, and you don't know how it's going to work. But you will always you have to see a traditional broadcast, because there are a lot of people who just want to watch the game.
Right. So, how often do you sit down to watch a game? Any sport, NFL, college football, NBA. You sit down, you're watching a game on a Tuesday, Wednesday night. And how often do you say to yourself when you're listening to the play-by-play guy, this guy stinks?
No, you know what? I watch people, and I think if I see somebody who has some talent and they're not, manifesting it maybe in the right way, I'm kind of trying to think through this right now as you're asking the question. I've never really thought about that, but there are ways I could be a mentor to a lot of these people, I think, not that I'm the be all end all, but I have the experience. And I watch some of the, the younger guys, and I know they're excited to be there. And it just, it evolves. I mean, to me, most of the guys that are doing the games, certainly at the highest levels, are pretty darn good, or they wouldn't be there.
Right.
But I don't sit there. I mean, maybe as a kid, I used to go, I'm as good as that. When I was 17 years old, I thought I could be the best announcer in Major League Baseball outside of Vince Scully.
Right.
But, I get it. I understand what some of them are going through. And I have a great appreciation for, for the guys that really are good. And there are a lot of them these days, Jimmy.
Do you often get the younger play-by-play guys coming to you for advice or tips?
From time to time, I do. Yeah. Yes. And a lot of times what I'll get ex-players too, who come to me and want to, know how to, handle certain situations. Look, I can sum this up this way in terms of broadcasting. I feel like the game, I've said this before, but the game is the melody. We provide the lyrics. And it's like singing a song. If the music is going one way and the lyrics are another way, it's cacophonous. It's like, why? Wait, that doesn't fit. So I'm always trying to, and I'm old enough. I've watched sports my whole life. I love sports. I get the rhythm of a game. I get where the game is. So, don't be over the top. If the game is really great, don't be down. Don't be low. Try to figure out where the game is. And part of this comes from being a fan, which I've been since I was 6 years old. And I kind of get the feeling of it. And especially growing up in New York and going to Ebbets Field when the Dodgers played there and Yankee Stadium and the Polo Grounds and going to Madison Square Garden, I get the rhythm of the crowd. I get the rhythm of the game. And I'm lucky because I grew up that way. My father took me to all these games when I was a kid, and I can still feel it. Really, at heart, I'm a fan.
Speaking of the rhythm of the game, this is the last one. I know you got to go. I'll tie it into sort of what we started this talking about Aaron Rodgers and COVID. I had Steve Levy on this podcast 2 weeks ago, the voice of Monday Night Football, and he talked extensively about the difference this year with the fans in the stands. I asked Steve a question about, he's in a 3-man booth. What's it like? 2-man, what do you prefer? And he said, it's actually a 4-man booth this year. That's how he feels with the fans back. I mean, you've been doing this so long, you could do a game in a broom closet, but tell me for you what the difference has been like this season compared to last.
It's energy, the energy in the stadium. I mean, last year they built this, $5 billion palace in my hometown, and we're doing Dallas and the Rams, first game ever there. It was bizarre. You walk in, there's nobody there. The craziest, I think, was Seattle, which is as noisy as any stadium. We did 2 games in Seattle last year. Crazy. I mean, it's like, and you're looking out and there's downtown and there's nobody around. So it was hard. It was hard. We missed the fans. This year, it's great. It's terrific. And not that I didn't know it would be great, but I mean, now you really see the contrast between last year. The only good thing about last year is you never had to beat the traffic, right? I mean, you could get out of the stadium and be home in 10 minutes. This year, it's wonderful. I mean, even in Minnesota the other night, it was great. It was a great feel, the music, the whole thing, and just the whole atmosphere was great. And Steve is right. There's no question about that. It is wonderful to have the fans back. Fantastic.
I appreciate it. You're still taking some weeks off here and there. How long do we got you before you have a week off? Do you know your upcoming?
Yeah, I think Mike and his deal has 4 or 5 games, so I will be on. I'm off Thanksgiving and the Sunday after, and then kind of back for a good part of December, and then down the stretch we come with the wild card game, divisional, and the big boy at SoFi Stadium.
You love that.
This was fun. Hey, listen, we'll make this part 1, right? When am I coming back on the show here?
When you go to Amazon, let me know so I can break the story, and then we'll have you back on.
Marshan will tell you first.
Oh, Marshan will have that first. There's no doubt. There's no doubt. All right, I appreciate it, Al. Take care. Stay safe, and always fun talking to you. And I'm going to go watch the prank call to Peter Jennings, I think, right
Beautiful.
now.
Beautiful. Right. It lives forever.
Lives forever.
Take care, man.
Take care. All right, time for our Train of Thought segment. So I bring in my buddy Sal Licata from WFAN Radio in New York and SNY TV in New York, wearing a Mets shirt the day after the Braves win the World Series if you're watching on YouTube.
Yeah, the problem with these shirts, like this is an old sweatshirt from the 2015 World Series. You know, I wear it occasionally.
Now, see, that's you cannot wear a World Series shirt when your team didn't win the World Series.
Well,
that's ridiculous.
I literally gave it no thought. I needed a sweatshirt.
Clearly,
pulled out. I was taking the dog for a walk, and my problem, like I said, is it shows how old this shirt is from 2015. That's what the problem is with these sports shirts.
I mean, how do you have a shirt that says with the Met logo that says World Series when you lost the World Series?
Because I wore
and people are going to say I'm just being an asshole Yankee fan, but I would say that about any team.
Oh, you get them at the time I bought them in 2015 to go to the World Series when I was going to the game. So I mean, what am I supposed to do? Throw them out? I mean,
see, I see that shirt and it's just a reminder to me that the Mets lost that World Series.
Agreed. I don't give it much thought. I look at it as a nice, warm, comfy shirt to take the dog for a walk in. But I understand your point.
I'm sorry, we got off to a rough start.
Yeah.
Oh God! Speaking of rough, let's hit the first train of thoughts topic. This Aaron Rodgers story I think is fascinating. Not because, listen. Here's what's funny. It's coming out now. Someone had told me off the record, and now I'm seeing it on Twitter. I think ESPN. Rodgers' claim is that he had a holistic vaccine. Now, I don't want to get. I have the last thing I want to talk about is vaccine. Get vaccinated. Right. Don't get vaccinated. This. There are 3 vaccines you can get: Pfizer, Moderna, or Johnson & Johnson. There's no holistic. Like, I don't know if he's drinking orange juice and taking ginger shots, and he claims he's vaccinated. But I think this is. I cannot wait to hear his explanation for this. Why? Why? Like, why? Just why?
See, he never said, and this is where people, and by the way, I'm not getting into it either, vaccinated, not vaccinated, but he never said, when I watched the clip and people say, oh, he lied. He never said,
well, he said he was immunized.
Right. I was immunized or whatever. Right.
But he's playing word games there.
But no, he's in his mind. So my initial thought was not whether he did some holistic ritual. I'm thinking, oh, maybe he got COVID and feels like because he got it, he's now immunized. Or what's the word?
Immunized. I can't say it either.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. I can't say it either.
Anyway, so he wasn't, I don't think he was lying. I think in his mind, he thought he was, and he never said flat out, I was vaccinated. So I don't care whether he lied or not. He
lied. He lied. Because he knows, listen, there are only 3 vaccines you can get. So if he didn't get one of those 3. But he never
said I was vaccinated.
They asked him if he was, they said point blank, are you vaccinated? He said yes. He said yes, I'm immunized.
Right. But that's different than being vaccinated.
I can't believe your take on this. This is a shocking take to me that you don't think he was just playing some bullshit word game.
Yeah, but because he never, like if you asked him point blank, hey, did you get vaccinated? And he said, yeah, I did. Oh, what shot did you get? Well, I got the Pfizer. That to me is lying.
Well, because in the middle of his lie, he explained that he's not going to get into it, and he has teammates who are unvaccinated. It's everyone's choice. The whole, and then he also gave the whole, I did my research, blah blah.
Oh
blah.
God, right? Well, whatever.
But here's the thing: you are a legit diehard sports fan, so I think you're a little removed from this because you're not a Packers fan. If you were you're a Falcons fan. If this happened with Matt Ryan and the team was 7-1, and then he was going to miss a game from this, I think you would be livid. He's missing a game.
I'm not. Look, I'm bothered as just a football fan that I'm not going to get a chance to watch him against the Chiefs this weekend. I mean, it is a big deal. I'm not saying from that aspect. What I'm saying is there are 2 different things here. Number one, I do have an issue with him putting himself before the team. And, same thing we can talk about Kyrie Irving. The list goes on, where he knew by not being vaccinated, this could happen and he would miss some time. So missing a game, it's just not acceptable from a sports fan's perspective. But the lying part of it, that's where all I'm saying is when I watched that clip, I didn't think, oh, he's lying. I think that he tried to use a loophole around it. But I do have a problem, obviously, with him not be able to play the game because he didn't want to get vaccinated.
I do agree with you. I think he was trying to play games more than lie.
Right.
But
he didn't want to answer it. And he used his way.
But he didn't want to answer it because he was unvaccinated.
Correct. So, but he didn't want people to know it. He goes on to say it's a personal decision,
That's fine, though, if you're going to follow the protocols. Like if you're unvaccinated, you're supposed to wear a mask on the sidelines. You're supposed to wear masks in the film room. Clearly, he wasn't doing any of that.
Now, did this happen at a Halloween party as he was dressed as John Wick? I mean, why now all of a sudden? What was he doing? If you're right, if he knows he's not vaccinated, what are you doing? Because there's
another quarterback. The quarterback, I don't know if it's not. I don't want to get it wrong. It's not a quarterback's coach, but there's some coach type quarterback person who got COVID.
Right.
So I guess he's in the same film room as Rodgers.
By the way,
Rodgers gets it.
Let me just say, we rip the NFL all the time for endless things. I like this rule. Now, it's not good for a fan's perspective to have Aaron Rodgers out. However, there is a harsh penalty if you are not vaccinated. It's very simple. If he were, wouldn't he be able to come back in a couple of days if he tested negative or something? Or there's there'd be a window where maybe
he'd be back a lot sooner if he was vaccinated.
Right. So once you find out that you got it and you're not vaccinated, not even a debate. He's out for the game. Simple as that. And it might be out for next week too.
I don't understand. Like just not getting a shot. It makes no sense to me. Whatever. I
just want to comment one more thing on this because I had this conversation. It is very personal to a lot of people, and I would never force anybody.
I think that's a bullshit line, but go ahead.
But it is true. But whatever. I would never want to just make anybody do something. However, I was talking about this with somebody in my family who's not vaccinated. I was saying, I think in certain people's minds, you build it up to this big thing, and
that's 100% accurate.
Make it like, oh, I don't want to do what it's not even a big deal.
That was my point about just get the stupid shot. It's so not a big deal.
Oh my God, they make it a huge, and I know from me personally, who was apprehensive at first, I don't like getting shots. Or what am I putting in my? It's just not. Once you get it, it's over. That's it. End of story. Move on. Live life.
That's my point. But I hate this whole, you just had a baby 6 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
She got shots and vaccinated.
Yeah, not that one.
But not that one.
Not
but
yet,
a bunch of a million others.
Just
was
recently,
it personal?
right.
No, it wasn't personal. It's what you do to stay healthy. I mean, it's just stupid. It's just, but again, that's the thing. It's become a us versus them type of thing. And it's just a big nothing to go get the shot.
Right.
Let's go to something way more fun and light. I love this Von Miller story. I'll give you a little background here. So after Von Miller gets traded from the Broncos to the Rams, it comes out that he had a Halloween party over the weekend for his teammates and got annoyed because his teammates wouldn't chip in to pay for it. Now, Von Miller is making God only knows how many millions. But this is a story. I've talked about this with you so many times over the years, personally, between us, about how anyone who compares their lives to an athlete's life is clueless. An athlete's life is nothing like they're living in another world. Case in point, this is a 6-figure Halloween party.
Right.
Like you're living in another world if you're throwing Halloween parties that cost over $100,000.
It's something that we can never relate to. Now, I got that wrong. I thought I read your story. So he was upset. Oh, and okay, right. When teammates declined to kick in for his annual party.
But how do you throw a party? You can't listen. I don't care how much money you make or who you are. If you throw a party, you don't ask other people to chip in.
Right. It's your right. Exactly. And even forget about even a party. If you have people over your house, I'm the one who's paying for the lunch, and it's courtesy. Right. It's common courtesy. Is you're the host. You do the serving. You pay for the stuff.
If you don't want to pay for it, then don't have the party.
Plus, he's making it, like you said, he's making a ton of money.
Now, I don't know whether it's true or not, but in my mind, I'm going with he got traded because of this, and I love this story.
There's no way that happens, but you're right. That is insane. Can you? And by the way, he's not alone. There are people that actually do that. Oh, we're having a party. Can you bring this? Can you bring that? Or can you? What?
I don't mind that. That's different than pay for it.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, it depends what type of party. I think if it's a big party, a little bit of an issue. And I would never ask somebody to bring something. If you were to come to my house and you said, hey, can I bring anything? And I happen to need something. Oh, all right. Well, if you wanted to bring this and that because you might like it, so be it. I'm not saying, and obviously
this was more like I need $10,000 from you because it's costing me $100,000 this party.
You have to pay for Quavo to perform. I mean, it's a little ridiculous.
The life of an athlete. No one can understand it. Believe me. Did you watch any of the ManningCast this week?
I did. I actually watched a lot. I couldn't help myself. Initially, because it was a Giants game and it was important, I had to be on after the game. I was like, let me watch the regular feed. I couldn't do it. I had to go back to the ManningCast.
It's so weird because I thought out of all of them, this was probably the one I probably enjoyed the least. I still enjoyed it, not as much as past weeks, but then it ended up getting their highest ratings by far. They did about 2 million viewers for it. Peyton eating the chicken, though, was phenomenal.
Oh, it was great. Those
and
things.
Eli saying, "Are you even breathing?" That was the highlight. That was the highlight of the ManningCast for me.
Here's the only issue I have with it. I love Jon Stewart. The guests at times it ruins it to me. I don't want to. It's awkward. There's a delay. They're talking over each other. Who's trying to be funny? If it's going to be a football guest that's talking about the game, I have no problem with that. I thought Michael Irvin was pretty good. Nothing, special, but it was fun. Strahan, I thought actually was pretty good. But the guest in general, I don't like.
It's very funny you said that, because I just had Al Michaels on, and if anyone listened to the interview already, I said to Al, the only, and I don't even want to use the words criticism because it's got a negative sort of connotation to it, but the only critique I'm hearing now more and more is less guests, more Mannings. So clearly you fit into that bucket.
Don't you think the delay has something to do with that too? It's choppy. They're going to break. It's always awkward.
It's the talking like I just did to you. Yeah. It's the talking over each other. It's the Peyton asks a question. A guy says a thought. Peyton talks about the game. Peyton goes to the guy to ask the question. The guy answers it. There's a delay. Peyton asks it again. The guy answers it again. Yes, you're 100% right. It's the talking over choppiness that happens here sometimes.
And then they're trying to get the other one involved. So let's say Peyton is talking to Jon Stewart for 5 minutes. He's like, "Oh, Eli, how about this?" It's unnatural to me, and I think that. But
I could do it out sort of the reminiscing and the old highlights when they have a guest on. I don't need to see Josh Allen's Halloween costume or that. Just
I thought Allen was great, by the way. He comes across lovable. Anyway,
yeah, he's a good guy.
Yeah, what you like, but anyway, that to me would be the only nitpick. I think with the guest, I don't mind it in certain spots. I think it is a little bit too much.
Next topic: did you watch Curb episode 2 this week?
I did, yeah, and I enjoyed it.
Think?
I don't know if it was as good as episode 1, but it was a typical Curb, a little crazy, out there type episode. So I did enjoy it.
I get the thing I think I like the most in the episode. I mean, it's so over the top and dumb, but it's Larry's reaction when Susie and Cheryl make fun of his towels, his ratty towels. Just, who else would get annoyed by someone talking about their towels?
Yeah, that was obviously Larry. A big part of it. I mean, the toilet scene to me, where we could all relate to that, has been a frustrating thing. Now he took it to another level, standing up on it and all that stuff. But
now, when you go into a public bathroom, do you use your hand to lift the toilet, or do you do your foot like
no
Larry?
Definitely foot, 100%.
You do?
Foot. Yeah. If I'm going to use my hand, I wrap it in toilet paper at least like 5 times. I'm not. What are you insane? Touching that thing? You go hand?
No, I just won't lift the thing. That's. But I'm not touching that, but I'm not using I don't want to get it on my sneaker and then I walk in my house with my sneakers and pisses on the floor. I don't want to do that either.
That is true. If I do lift, though, it's usually with the foot.
Yeah, I just leave it down.
It depends what you're walking into. If you're walking into a clean one, and I'm like, all right, well, let's not mess this up. You use the foot to lift the seat up and you go about it. If it's just, chaos in there, then maybe you feel like you don't want to touch it with your foot.
Larry should have used that as an opportunity to say that every place should have a urinal. That was the problem. It had a toilet. If it had a urinal, you don't have to worry about that.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea. And it's got to be one with a wall. I don't like the urinal. Like if you go to Wrigley Field, you ever go to Wrigley Field?
Oh, that's a trough.
Oh, my God.
That's a trough.
Yeah, I can't go in that situation. Yeah. That's no good. Who uses a trough? I mean, come on.
I've never been in a men's room with you. Like I wanted to see you use your feet to lift the toilet. I want to see how that goes down because I know how you are. If you hit the ground with that or something, you're not going to be. Oh my God, you would flip out. You'd leave.
Yeah, no, it's such a gross.
That's funny.
Thing. Yeah.
Last thing, came out Tuesday. I tweeted it. I texted you about it. David Chase gave an interview to The Hollywood Reporter and basically confirmed that Tony Soprano died in the last episode of The Sopranos. Now, he pulled his David Chase nonsense where he doesn't directly say it. I actually printed it out to explain what. So he talks about, he had given a previous interview, I think to Alan Sepinwall of Rolling Stone, who's a regular on this guest. And he slipped during the interview with Sepinwall and said, well, I had that death scene in mind for years about cutting to black. So he called it a death scene.
Right.
So Hollywood Reporter asked him about that quote. And he said, this is the quote from Chase. Because the scene I had in my mind was not that scene, nor did I think of cutting to black. I had a scene in which Tony comes back from a meeting in New York in his car at the beginning of every show. He came from New York into New Jersey, and the last scene could be him coming from New Jersey back into New York for a meeting at which he was going to be killed.
Right.
So Tony died in the last episode.
Right. And then did you hear Chase go on and talk about why he was pissed at fans for being pissed?
Right. So he basically, again, he plays this game. It's like Aaron Rodgers. He won't directly say Tony died, Tony was killed. He said it was a death scene. He had a scene in mind where Tony was killed. And then what Sal's alluding to is a follow-up. He said he got disgusted that the fans wanted Tony to be shown getting killed with his face down in a plate of linguine. So that's probably why he did the fade to black.
Which I could understand, but he's got to understand. I don't think anybody wanted to see Tony die. But if you're going to go that route, then you need to show us that what happened. Nobody wants to see fade to black. I love Tony. I don't want to see him die. I hate knowing that that's the ending, that Tony did get clipped in that particular way with his family. I hate knowing that that was the ending. However, if that's the ending, you do need to see it. I think he misunderstood. People weren't rooting for that. We didn't want to see blood and Tony, with his face in the linguine, whatever he said. But we don't want to see fade to black and wonder, hey, what the hell just happened? Where everybody in America is thinking the TV just went out.
And that's the thing. He made the point. He's like, oh, I can't believe people wanted to see Tony face down in the play linguine. Why not? What's wrong with that?
Yeah, well, if they did. But you don't want Tony to die. You love Tony. I mean,
Well, listen, to me, whether Tony dies or lives is irrelevant to me in that last episode, because the series itself, it's the greatest show of all time. It wouldn't hurt my enjoyment. If Tony died or was not killed, it wouldn't hurt my enjoyment. Right. I'm not as wrapped up in whether he died or not. I will say this. I kind of like that Chase wouldn't answer the question all these years. I'm kind of bummed that he answered it because I like the constant speculation.
But now you know that he died.
But it doesn't really affect how I feel about the show.
No, of course not. But
there's some people who say like, "Oh, the last episode was so bad, terrible show."
No, that's like, stupid. It was a great show. Matter of fact, reading that article, and I don't read these articles a lot. Now, I saw you tweet it or text me or whatever, and I went through it and I was into it. Pretty much read that entire thing. And it also inspired me to want to go back and watch it again. That's how much I love the show. So was every episode great? No, I did get bothered though with Chase, where it's like, oh, I'm sick of hearing about the Pine Barrens episode.
Yeah.
And he's like dismissing the fans. How could you watch this crap all these years? And now you want Tony to die? Like, dude, calm down. Everybody loves the show. We just wanted to know what happened as opposed to guessing what happened. I hate that crap. Just let me know what happened.
Yeah, that's funny because I picked up on the same thing. I didn't like his dismissal of Pine Barrens. I thought that was
the fans.
I think he was like half tongue in cheek about it, but it's hard in print to come across if you're tongue in cheek about it.
Maybe I don't know. He seemed like he was legitimately bothered. I know you love the Pine Barrens more than anybody. So
right, I love that episode.
He was talking to you directly.
I know. I mean, listen, he should be grateful.
Right?
People think that's the best episode of the series. So.
Great show either way. And by the way, he did leave it open to there's going to probably be one more movie in between, which we kind of assumed after watching the many Saints of Newark, but there'll be one more piece to maybe tie it together from the end of Saints of Newark to the beginning of the
hopefully
Sopranos.
It's better than Saints of Newark. Can't be much worse. All right, Sal. Appreciate you coming on. Be well. Take care. We'll see you next week. All right. All right. My thanks to Al Michaels and Sal Licata for their time on this week's SI Media podcast. If you missed last week's show, Chris Long was on for a fun interview. 2 weeks ago, Steve Levy from Monday Night Football and Jeff Garland from Curb Your Enthusiasm were on the pod. So check those out if you did not listen. Download, subscribe, and give a review for the SI Media podcast on Apple. All right. We'll see you next week right here on the SI Media podcast. Stay safe and take care.